any C division students? No C division students? Okay, anyways. So as we have already started discussing unit 3 of computer integrated manufacturing subject, we started with what are these manual assembly lines, and I just started with the fundamentals of the manual assembly line. Okay, and then we have discussed about what is this manual assembly line, and one second. Okay, so as I said, we started with what are the fundamentals of manual assembly line, and before that, we just try to understand what is this basically manual assembly line, and what are the factors which favor the use of manual assembly line, and also we have checked out some principles. We have just tried to understand some principles, or you can say the reasons why manual assembly lines are so productive. Okay, so we understood there is specialization of labor, interchangeable parts, workflow principle, and line pacing. And then I just discussed about a very quick history about the manual assembly line in the last class. And then we started with what are these assembly workstations. We also discussed the different work part transport system, in that we have manual and mechanized. As we had a lot of discussion about these things in unit 2, so it was a very quick review kind of a discussion that we had with respect to the work part transport system. In mechanized work part, we have this continuous transport, synchronous, asynchronous. So all these things, as they were already discussed, we just quickly looked into it. There's this one thing which I need to once again discuss a little in detail, that is about the assembly workstations. So as already told, an assembly workstation, it is a designated location along the workflow path at which one or more work element, that is a task, are performed by one or more workers. Okay, and we know these are the different types of operations that are performed at manual assembly stations. You can just read the different types of operations. So this I have already discussed. But then there is this concept of manning, the manning level, MANNING. Okay. Manning level is something that we need to understand here. So what do we mean by this manning level? Okay. So basically, this manning level of a workstation, it is basically symbolized by M subscript I. Manning level means what, there may be more than one worker per station. Okay, there are these situations. We just studied when we were studying the the assembly workstations. I said that there may be one worker, there may be multiple workers. They may be either standing and performing the task, or maybe they're allowed to sit down. So it depends upon the type of task that they are performing. There will be number of workers assigned to every station, and the type of comfort will be given to them. Like they can either be seated and doing the task, or they can be either standing and moving along with the work part and then performing the task. So this manning level of a workstation, it is basically symbolized by MI. It is nothing but the proportion of time that a worker is at the station. So manning level means what? How much time the worker is actually present at the station to perform a certain task. For example, suppose if we say that the manning level, um, Suppose if I say that the manning level is 1, if suppose I say mi is equals to 1 for station I, it means that there is one worker who must be at the station continuously. Okay, if one worker he is in charge of 4 machines, for example, then we can say that the manning level or the mi value will be 0.25 for each of the 4 machines. Okay, so if I say that there is one worker who is responsible for checking out the functioning of 4 machines, then the manning level will be 0.25. Okay, this is not a value that will be expressed in percentage or anything like that. No, it's not. It does not even have any unit. Okay, so so if you consider an automobile final assembly line, there are stations wherein they require multiple workers at one particular station. Okay, so there are situations wherein you'll either have one person working at one station, or maybe there are many people, two, three workers working at one single station. So in that case, the manning level will be 2 or more than that. So in general, you can understand one thing, that whenever you go for these manual kind of operation, the manning level will be high. Okay, that is the m value will be greater than 1. And suppose if the task that is performed at the stations are automated in a way, then the value of m will be less than 1. Oh, sorry, yeah, the value of m, that is the manning level, it will be less than 1. So you can just see the equations here. The average manning level, it is given by this equation w subscript u plus summation of wi, where I is equals to 1 to n divided by n. So please note down these equations. The practical average manning level equation, which is there, which is at the last equation on the slide, um, that is an equation which considers all the practical things, and because the workers that are there, right, maybe may not all the workers that are involved in the manual assembly line doing some productive work. There will be some workers who are doing some kind of helping kind of work there. So here you have these two equations, and you need to note down both these equations. So we have the average manning level, that is W subscript U plus summation of Wi, where I is equals to 1 to n divided by n, where capital M is the average manning level of the line. W subscript U, it is number of utility workers that are assigned to the system. N is number of workstations, and Wi is number of workers assigned specifically to the stations. So please note down this thing. So this same equation that we have here, where m is equals to wu plus summation of wi is equals to 1 to n divided by n, this whole thing, when you sum it up, you get this equation, that is, you get this average manning equation, that is m is equals to w upon n. So in most of our calculations, you will be, just a second. Huh? तर मला ठीक आहे. Fine. Okay. Okay. Sorry for the gap I had to take. Sir had come, so I had to just talk to him. Okay. So we were discussing about uh, the Manning level, and I hope you all have written down these equations. So now let us understand what are these utility workers, because you can see in this equation, is the slide visible?
Yes, ma'am.
So who are the utility workers basically? Because you can see in this equation that we have taken in general here, we have W subscript U as the number of utility workers who are assigned to the system. So let's understand who are these utility workers. So utility workers, they are not basically assigned to a specific workstation, but they are very much important as they are responsible for helping the workers who fall behind, relieving the workers for some personal breaks, or with respect to this maintenance and repair, they are involved in all these activities. So they do play a very important role, and therefore their involvement is also considered in the calculation of the Manning level. So the utility workers, they are the workers who are basically not specifically assigned to any individual processing or assembly stations. They instead perform the functions like the ones listed already. There is one more function, or they are also responsible for the tool change and the task related to the tools also. Maybe there is some change in tool change that has to be done, or maybe whenever there is some breakdown that is happening because of the tool. So they even look into those things. So what happens is, even a fully automated multi-station manufacturing system, even that is likely to have one or more utility workers who are responsible for keeping it running. Okay, so if you say that a system is completely automated, there also you will see that there are these utility workers who are necessary, which who will basically help us in keeping the complete automated system running. So we have already discussed about these work transport systems. In this, we have said that there are two categories: manual and mechanized. So under manual workstation, we do face these problems of starving and blocking. And because of this, if you're including these buffer storages, then you can do away with these starving and blocking problems. Then comes these mechanized workstation, wherein you either have some powered conveyors or some mechanized apparatus. Then types of mechanized work transport, we have already studied continuous, synchronous, or synchronous transport in unit 2. So we know these things already. And these are some of the continuous, synchronous, and asynchronous transport systems that are there. So now coming to what is line pacing. So let us understand this line pacing with respect to the manual assembly lines. So a manual assembly line, it operates at a certain cycle time. On average, each worker must complete his or her assigned task within this cycle time, or else the required production rate will not be achieved. So here the line pacing, the word pacing, we already know the meaning of pacing. We do use it in our everyday talking also, right? So when it comes to line pacing, the meaning here is same as we already know it. But with respect to the manual assembly line, how it is applied is like there is a certain cycle time which is assigned for every task to be completed. right? It has to be whatever task is given to that person. If suppose it's a manual assembly line, that person needs to perform that task within the given period of time in order to achieve a certain production rate. So pacing basically provides a discipline for the assembly line workers that more or less guarantees a certain production rate for the line. So as we already know, till now we have studied all these measure of performances, and production rate is one of an important measure of performance. So basically, when it comes to production rate, we try and increase the production rate as much as possible. So following a certain line pacing, and if you have these disciplines followed on these assembly lines, then you can be sure that the production rate that has to be achieved will be achieved. Okay, so basically a manual assembly line, oh sorry, this pacing of the workers on the is one of the reasons why a manual assembly line is successful. So when we talk about manual assembly line pacing, this concept of pacing plays a very important role, because if you have this proper pacing done, then you can assure that the manual assembly line will be a success. So pacing basically, it has these three levels. One is rigid pacing, pacing with margin, and no pacing. So let us try to understand what is this rigid pacing, pacing with margin, and no pacing. So what is rigid pacing? In rigid pacing, each worker, he is allowed only a certain fixed time each cycle to complete the assigned task. So when it comes to a worker working at a certain workstation, at that particular station, the worker is going to have certain time which he is assigned, and he has to perform the task within that assigned time itself. There is no flexibility for any sort of delays with respect to the time that has been allotted to the worker to complete his or her task. So the allowed time is implemented by a synchronous work part transport system, which basically deals with distributing the cycle time equally on the line. So rigid pacing has two undesirable aspects. Okay, basically, um, the first one that is there is rigid pacing is emotionally and physically stressful to human workers. Obviously, when a person is forced to work in a certain period of time, that person is going to be emotionally and physically stressed at work. So that is one of the undesirable aspect of this rigid pacing. So rigid pacing is what? The worker has to complete his task in the given period of time without any flexibilities, without any allowance given with respect to the allowed time. Also, one more undesirable aspect of this rigid pacing is that in a rigidly placed operation, if the task has not been completed within the fixed cycle time, the work units that exit the station will remain incomplete. So if you're not able to perform the task in the given time, then the work unit that had to be assembled will go incomplete, and hence the things will remain incomplete as and when they proceed forward. So that is yet another undesirable aspect of rigid pacing. So this basically may inhibit the completion of subsequent task at the downstream stations. So whatever task is left undone on the work unit at a regular workstation, it must later be completed by some other worker in order to yield the acceptable product. So here you can just you can just imagine the utility workers come in picture. So because they are responsible for, covering up for whatever delays or for the incomplete work that has been assigned. So utility workers, they're basically not going to be assigned for a specific task, but they're responsible for so many other things that we already listed in the previous slide. Okay, so in the type of pacing, this is about the rigid pacing. Now let's understand what is pacing with margin. So pacing with margin, the worker is allowed to complete the task at the station within a specified time range. The maximum time of the range is longer than the cycle time, so that a worker is permitted to take more time if a problem occurs, or if the task time required for a particular work unit is larger than the average. There are several ways in which pacing with margin it can be achieved. Okay, so how can we achieve this pacing with margin? One is to allow queues of work units between stations. Second is designing the line so that the time or work unit spent inside each station is longer than the cycle time. So you already have to give some extra time. And the third one is allowing the workers to move beyond the boundaries of his or own station. So what happens in the first method? Okay, that is implement. The first method basically is implemented using a asynchronous transport system. So what is the first method we said here? It is allowing queues of work units to form between the station. And this can be made possible by using these asynchronous transport system, where the work units, they will be basically allowed to form a queue in front of the workstation. Thus, what will happen is it is guaranteed that the workers are never starved for any work, but they also provide extra time for some work units as long as the other units take less time. So we already know how this asynchronous transport works. Asynchronous transport is all moving independent of each other. We do not move all the parts on the station at a time. We are just going to move it independent. Once you finish the task, only then the other work unit comes in for the task for the other operation to be performed on it. So here asynchronous transport system is used in order to achieve, one second. Yeah. In order to achieve this pacing with margin. So moving on to the second method. Now, second method is what provide for tolerance time to be longer than the cycle time. So how can we achieve this? It is achieved by using these continuous moving conveyors. Because the conveyors that we use here, they are basically going to move at a constant speed. So when the station length is longer than the distance between the workers to complete the assigned task, then what happens? The time spent by the work unit um, inside the station boundaries, it is longer than the cycle time. So by using these continuous moving conveyors, you can achieve the second way in which you can achieve this pacing with margin. Okay, so that is the designing the line so that the time a work unit spends inside each station is longer than the cycle time, and this can be achieved by using continuously moving conveyors. Moving on to the third, that is allowing the worker to move beyond the boundaries of his or her own stations. So here the worker is simply allowed to either move upstream beyond the immediate station to get an early start, or go to the next work unit, or they can move to the downstream stations to finish the task on the current work unit. So in either cases, there are usually practical limits on how far the worker can move upstream and downstream. Okay, making the case of pacing with margin possible. So here, if you're not going to restrict the workers with respect to their boundaries, and suppose if a worker is able to complete the task little early than the given time, then he can just go to the upstream station and try to get in the work parts in order to complete, and also he can move to the downstream station as in when the work is completed. So he's not restricted to his workstation boundaries here. So having included all of these things, it will be possible to achieve this pacing with margin. So moving on to the third level of pacing, that is no pacing. Okay. So that is no time limit within which the task has to be completed. So pacing is what certain time is actually assigned for the task to be completed. Pacing with margin is what sorry, rigid pacing is fixed time given, you have to complete the task in that time. Pacing with margin is time is given, but then you still have some flexibility, some allowance given. And in the third one, that is no pacing. In no pacing, there is no time limit given itself. So no time limit within which the task must be completed. Each assembly worker works at his or her own pace. No pacing can occur. Okay. So in the third level of pacing is when there is no pacing, meaning that there is no time limit which exists within which the task at the station must be finished. In effect, each assembly operator, he works at his or her own pace. This case can occur when manual work transport is used on the line. Okay, so whenever you have manual work transport on the line, then yes, you can move the work parts as and when you want. You do not have to rely on any of the mechanized work part transport systems. So because of this, you can take your own time to move the parts from one station to another. So no pacing can be achieved by having manual work part transport on the line. Also, this case can occur when the work units can be removed from the conveyor, allowing the worker to take as much time as desired to complete a given unit. Also, a synchronous conveyor can be used, and the worker controls the release of each work unit from the station. So, if you see in all of these cases, there is no mechanical means of achieving any pacing. It's all done manually, right? So, no pacing basically means that there is no time limit for the worker to perform the task that has been assigned to him. Okay. So, this is about what is line pacing and what are the three levels of line pacing. Now let's see what is this coping with the product variety. Um, so owing to this versatility of human workers, the manual assembly line, they can be designed to deal with difference in the assembled products, right? So we have so many variety of products that are assembled. Almost all the products that we see around are going to be assembled itself. All are assembled products. So in general, the product variety, it must be relatively soft. So when it comes to these manual assembly lines, the product variety has to be soft. Means what? There has to be very less difference in the products. And when we say that the variety is very there is this product variety is hard, that means the products are way different from each other. So basically there are three types of assembly lines that can be distinguished here, that is single model, batch model, and mixed model. So the single model, batch model, and mixed model is nothing different from the understanding of ours with respect to job shop production, batch production, and the mass production. It is something similar to that itself. Okay. So when it comes to single model line, what do we mean by a single model line? Basically, a single model line is one which produces only one type of product, that too in a very large quantity. So this can be related to the mass production that we know. So every work unit, it is identical. So the task performed at each station is going to be the same for all the products. And this line basically is intended for products which have a very high demand. So when do we go for the single model assembly line? Whenever we have high demand for any product. So it's similar to mass production. So you can see on the slide here, every work unit is the same. So products which have high demand will go for the single model assembly line. Now moving on to the batch model assembly line, when you have a hard product variety and products must be made in batches, that time you can go for this batch model assembly line. Batch model and mixed model, basically these are designed to produce two or more models, but different approaches are used to cope up with the model preparation. In a batch model, what happens, each the batch model line, it produces each model in batches. So at certain time there is one batch going, so there's one type of product that has been it is getting assembled. Once you change the batch, there is a different type of product that is getting assembled. So workstations are set up to produce the required quantity of a first model. Then the stations are configured to produce the next model, and so on. So the products, they are basically assembled in batches when the demand for each product is medium. So single model, it is used whenever you have a high product demand, and when it's medium, then you can go for this batch model. It is generally more economical to use one assembly line to produce several products in batches than to build several lines for different models. So instead of having number of lines for every type of or every model, it's better to have just one model which can have the ability or which can accommodate the changes that will be made to it in order to accommodate a different type of different model of that product. So when we state that the workstations are set up, we are referring to the assigned task that they are going to do on each station. So there are going to be different types of tools that will be required for certain task, and the labor sorry, the also the layouts that are there, they are going to be different. So all these things need to be taken into consideration when you plan for a batch model assembly line. Moving on to the mixed model line, this is basically more relevant when you have small soft product variety, when the models can be assembled simultaneously without batching on the line. So a mixed model line also produces more than one model. However, the models are not produced in batches. So on the same line, you can see after one product is made, the next product may be way different from it. Of course, the variety is very it's not completely different from the previous product. It will be a slightly different from the previous product. So there is a soft variety that is seen here instead of hard variety. Okay, so here what happens is on the mixed model line, all the models or all the parts, they will be made simultaneously on the same line. So you do not have to wait for a changeover or change of tools or anything like that. The same line that has been set up, the assembly line that has been set up, it will have the ability to accommodate all the changes that need to be made in order to have different or the mixed models. So while one station is working on one model, the next station will be processing a different model. So each station, it is equipped to perform the variety of tasks needed to produce any model that is going to move through it. So here the workstations are going to be equipped with all possible tools that will be required and which can accommodate all the changes that need to be achieved this mixed model line. So many consumer products are assembled on the mixed model line. Like you have automobile, um, there are so many major appliances that we use. They can have these mixed models. So when we talk about mixed model, if you even consider a washing machine, you have so many different models in washing machine itself. So you can imagine a mixed model assembly line to be a washing machine with different models. Okay, there'll be this common assembly line which is there, and maybe on one station there is one type of model working, on the other station there is another type of model. They are all going to have the same features, almost similar, but there will be a very little variety in them. So that's why we say that it has a soft product variety. So this is advantages of mixed model line over batch models. So you can just go through these things, how one is better than the other. Um, we'll just take a break for 5 minutes and come back. We will just check out the analysis of single model assembly line. There are some equations with respect to this. So today I'll be only discussing analysis of single model assembly line, and the line balancing problem and the repositioning losses. We'll take it up in the next class. So in the next, we'll just meet after 10 minutes and we will continue with the class. Is it fine?
Yes, ma'am.